sales taxes are the most regressive type of tax. Because by their very nature, they affect people who have less income more than people who have more income.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Speaking of Alabama politicians not caring about Alabamians, State Senator David Sessions.
Oh.
I had never. Had you ever had any run-ins with this guy before?
I've never had any run-ins with him, no.
Okay. I had not heard about him until this story that I saw on Koch-funded flat Earth military coup crypto bro boosting 1819 news. I had never heard of this guy, State Senator David Sessions, before. But with inflation at about 9% right now, many working families are definitely being hit at the grocery store. And this is not made any easier by the fact that Alabama still has a tax on groceries, one of only 13 states to do so, adding another 6 to 9% on top of inflation. Naturally, then, Alabama politicians are talking about another business tax cut in the next session. So, you heard that right. Instead of trying to galvanize support and build a coalition for repealing what is probably one of the single most consequential taxes on working people in the state of Alabama, a tax on groceries, politicians like State Senator David Sessions, a Republican from Grand Bay, Alabama, is talking about still more tax cuts for bosses. It's absolutely amazing. He says in an interview on the Jeff Poor Show down in Mobile, quote, "I'm certain there'll be more. Like I said, we did several last year. We did a small one on the business personal property tax. As a small business person, I've never really liked that one much. I would like to see it done away with totally. It's personal." And see, this is funny. When I read it's personal, I just saw that quote. I was like, oh, this guy, like, he wants to cut taxes for himself. Like, that's pretty convenient. But then he goes on to say later in the interview that he's actually totally exempt from this tax because he owns a farm instead of another small business. So this is just like class solidarity for the bosses.
Right.
Well,
he wants to be able to brag at the country club to all of his friends that he cut their tax bill, and now they can enjoy some of the same wonderful tax breaks that he enjoys.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go out here on a limb and say I am not a small business person. I am a working class person. And I'm not a big fan of the grocery tax.
Right.
It's a little bit personal. Every time I go to Walmart and Publix, it's personal.
And the thing is Infinite Content says in the chat, why not just eliminate the grocery tax altogether, which is exactly what you should do. And the question arises always, what are we going to replace the funding with? Because the grocery tax funds education and stuff like this.
Right, and that's a major issue, and that is an obstacle to dealing with it, because obviously the education community is going to be skeptical of any proposals to cut the grocery tax unless there is like rock-solid plans to replace the funding, right? Because the last thing we need to do in the state of Alabama is cut education funding. Jesus.
And the thing is that you could literally just tax big businesses, tax wealthy people, add another bracket on the income tax for higher earners, people who make over, $400,000, tax them at another 1% on income over $400,000 or something. This is like, you could literally
There's so many ways.
And so many ways that you could shift the burden from working people to people who have it much easier. And they don't do this because there would be attack ads about, they raise taxes or whatever. And the thing is, every session that they choose not to eliminate the grocery tax, it is a choice. It is an active choice to continue taxing working people, poor people like me and you, people who work for a living. It is an active choice to continue taxing us and relieving the tax burden that would otherwise be there on the wealthy, on bosses. Every year, they choose to tax working people like me and you instead of bosses, instead of wealthy people. That's a choice that they make every year, because every year they have the option to maintain the same amount of tax revenue coming in and just shift the burden to the wealthy. But they don't. They always choose, it is a choice, to maintain the tax burden of the grocery tax, which sales taxes are the most regressive type of tax. Because by their very nature, they affect people who have less income more than people who have more income. If you make $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year, all of that money is going to go towards your expenses, towards rent, utilities, and groceries, right? So something like 20% of your income is going to go towards groceries. Whereas a person who makes $100,000 a year, $200,000, $300,000, $1 million a year, only like 1% of their income is going to go towards groceries. So that means that you're taxing on an income basis more on poor people, on working people, than you are on higher income people, on bosses, things like this.
Right. And one thing to add here is, and we've talked about it on the show several times, Alabama Rise has already done the homework for them. Like, they don't have to come up with a new plan. Alabama Rise, who does great work around policy, particularly around poor folks in Alabama, they have put out the research, they've put out a study, they've put out a plan that could actually replace this revenue while providing a tax cut for the majority of Alabamians. It's pretty simple. You just remove the federal income tax deduction that's in Alabama's tax code, which disproportionately benefits the wealthy. You remove that, and you would be able to remove the grocery sales tax and have actual more revenue coming in than you would otherwise.
Yeah.
So the state of Alabama could raise more funds. Majority of Alabamians would actually see a tax cut, and the only folks who would see any modest increase in their taxes would be the very wealthiest Alabamians, which again, they wouldn't be paying the grocery tax anymore either, so it's still offset.
Right.
It still would be incredibly modest. But by doing this, we would relieve the tax burden on working class people in the state. We would raise more revenue in order to actually improve education funding or wherever else it may need to go. It's so common sense. And like you said, every legislative session, it is a choice.
Right.
They choose what to prioritize, and they choose what bills are going to get a vote. They choose what bills are going to get passed. And every year, inevitably, there are more tax cuts for business and for the wealthy, with complete inaction when it comes to working class people and the tax burden we bear, and needless to say, any sort of investment in the social safety net. I mean, it's 2022, we haven't even expanded Medicaid in the state.
Right. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.